So I've done a few recovery videos of my journey recovering from fibromyalgia and CFS, but I felt like I needed to record something to let you know where I started from. So I'm going to go back to the beginning and give you a little bit of a summary about my journey so far. And that way you can see how far I've come. And the whole point of this is just to give everybody hope that no matter where you started, how far down you were, it is possible to heal. And so I have my notes down here in case you're wondering what I'm looking at. It's been a very long journey. My journey started 5 years ago, and don't let that scare you. 5 years is a long time, but I had some major setbacks during that time. Everybody takes, everybody's going to have their own journey. Everybody's going to take their own amount of time to heal. This is where I'm at. So I'm sure you've done your own research like I did, and you figured out that at its core, CFS, ME, fibromyalgia, POTS, these are all nervous system dysfunctions, and they're usually caused by some sort of trauma. Medical trauma, emotional trauma, divorce, car accidents, physical trauma, viruses. So something is a trigger for these things, for your nervous system to get tipped into dysfunction. For me, it was a medical trauma. So in spring of 2014, I had my first posterior nosebleed. And these are not regular nosebleeds. This is when a major artery ruptures in your sinuses and requires emergency surgery to stop the bleeding, which I had. But I had lost so much blood that it took me 2 months to be able to walk again. But I ended up, when we were trying to figure out why this happened, we figured out that my blood pressure was extremely high for some reason. And so we decided to take me off of my antidepressant, which I had been on for 6 or 7 years, which was Prestige. And even though I tapered down like the doctor told me to, it wasn't enough for me. The day after I took my last dose, I woke up and felt like I had just got hit with the flu. I was in a lot of pain, like my muscles, my body hurt, extreme fatigue, joint pain. I just had no idea what was going on. So after a couple of days when I didn't recover, my doctor sent me to a rheumatologist. I just remember driving there and my hands hurt so bad I could barely grip the steering wheel. My legs felt like they were just heavy, heavy logs. I could barely move them, but I felt like it was really bad nerve pain, ants were biting my inside of my legs. And I was just in extreme pain. And so he did x-rays just to rule out arthritis and basically diagnosed me with fibromyalgia and told me to keep exercising. Yeah, really helpful, right? I mean, I can't even walk and he's telling me to keep exercising. But anyway, but I just want to say one thing here, even though getting off the Prestige was a catalyst for me getting ill, I was, the year before that, I noticed that I was not feeling well. I was feeling fatigued. I actually went to my yoga teacher, who was a nutritionist also, and I said, I'm eating healthy. I have no energy. I don't know what's going on. So she suggested a couple of diet changes. And I noticed leaving yoga class, my body just hurt every time and I couldn't recover. I would go every 3 days, and driving home was really painful. I could barely, push the pedals. I was just tired. I was like, what is going on? And knowing what I know now about the fact that I had high blood pressure, I know that my nervous system was starting to tip over into that dysfunction, and then the Prestige was just the catalyst. So I went home from the rheumatologist, and I had brain fog, so it was really hard to concentrate, but I did the best I could researching this, monster thing that had taken over my life and just derailed it. And to my horror, figured out that there's no cure. Nobody knows what goes wrong, nobody can fix it. You just kind of have to be on your own with this life-changing event. So I was pretty much housebound for the first probably 5 or 6 months. I was in extreme pain. I spent most of my time in the bathtub or in the pool just because being in the water was the only thing that, made the pain bearable. So I don't remember much about that first 6 months. Okay, so some of my symptoms at this point. Pain, the overall flu-like muscle aching through my whole body, the burning nerve pain in my legs, which felt like ants biting me, just thousands of ants in my body biting me, joint pain, especially in my hips, shoulders and neck pain. The first 6 months, it was almost unbearable. I'd say like a 7 or 8 on the pain scale, and I couldn't take any kind of pain medication because of the nosebleed. The pain medications are a blood thinner, like ibuprofen and stuff. So the fatigue, I just felt like I was living with a drained battery. Like just taking a shower was probably the only thing I could accomplish in a day, and even that was iffy. If I tried to do anything extra, like when I started feeling better after 5 or 6 months, I was like, okay, let me just try to vacuum one room of the house. And that just set me back for days. So the fatigue was extreme. Like exercise was completely out of the question. I had post-exertion malaise, which means that your symptoms get worse with any physical or mental activity. I had brain fog and memory issues, light and sound sensitivity, blurry vision, bouts of vertigo that I actually had to go and get treatment for. I had a hard time digesting solid foods and weird new food sensitivities, like I suddenly was allergic to cinnamon. I had daily headaches, which eventually led to my first migraine, and I had those headaches for years. And my body also had a hard time regulating like blood sugar, blood pressure, which is why my blood pressure was suddenly high. I would have these weird blood sugar attacks where I'd start sweating really bad. My vision would go dark, and I would just have to lay on the floor until I could get like orange juice or something in me. And body temperature, I'm always either freezing or hot. So about a year later, in May of 2015, I had my second posterior nosebleed. And this time the surgery that they didn't work. So I had to go back in, and they had to block the arteries in my face to get the bleeding to stop, which they go in through a catheter and come up and block the arteries in your face. So the nerve pain from that was ridiculous. I actually had to take Vicodin for 2 weeks. I could not, it was unbearable. My face just felt like it was on fire. I wanted to rip it off. It was bad. So I survived that. But, at this point, my physical symptoms were compounded by the mental symptoms. That I had depression again. I had anxiety. I was just learning to deal with the fact that my life had changed drastically. I could no longer do things like ride bikes with my kids, walk my dogs. I was basically watching everybody else live their life in my house, and I was, you know how it is. You're basically separated from your family and everything that you loved in life. So that was really hard to deal with. And I always mention this, but I couldn't do any kind of grocery shopping, cooking, or anything like that. So this is about the time that I found that I could get on the computer more. So I started watching other people's recovery videos like it was my religion. I just absorbed these things, and it kept my hope up that even though the doctors had no idea how to fix this, people were healing. There were people out there fixing it on their own. So over the next year and a half, which is 3 years since I originally got sick, I did gradually start to heal. And this was with a combination of medical intervention and holistic healing and just learning what I was dealing with, just having more knowledge through all my personal research that I was doing. And so I'd say at this point, like 3 years in, I was about 70 to 80% healed, depending on the day. So I at that point, I still had, joint pain. If I walked very far, I would still get hip pain really bad. And by far, I mean like, a 2 or 3 minute walk. I had to pace myself. I still had exercise intolerance, of course, but I could swim a little bit in the pool. So I'll tell you about some of the things I did that I think helped my healing, keeping in mind that everybody comes to this illness in their own way with a different path, and everybody's going to have to heal in their own way and take their own path. I'm just going to tell you some of the things that worked for me. So I watched the recovery videos, like I mentioned. These were like a lifeline for me, just keeping up that hope and not falling into, despair that this was now my life forever. I tried physical therapy. That did not work for me. It was very painful. And I tried the deeper massages, which were painful and helped for about a day or two. The massage therapist could actually feel my muscles had all these little tiny knots in them. Your muscle fibers actually change. So for a day or two, I would feel looser, but then it would just come right back. So that was a waste of money. Acupuncture. I think it was more about, I don't know. It was more about relaxing mainly. It didn't help or hurt, I don't think. One of the only medications that I tried, and it actually worked for me, is called LDN. It's low dose naltrexone. And this drug is, when they say low dose, it's 4.5 milligrams or below. And this drug actually boosts your immune system. And they've just figured out that your immune system and your nervous system are actually physically connected. So this made sense to me. But the first dose I took of this LDN at night, I woke up the next day and my nerve pain in my legs was gone. I still had the muscle pain, I still had the joint pain, but the nerve pain was gone, which was like, it was such a relief. I remember that day, like I actually went to the beach. I was like, my legs feel good, let's go to the beach. And I hadn't been to the beach in probably 2 years because it just walking down the sand was too painful. And it actually gave me a little bit more energy. So that was a success. I tried a lot of different supplements. I can't say that there's one that helped me except for the CoQ10. I think I'm still taking that. I think that actually gives me a little bit more energy. Also, I did see a functional medicine doctor, and when she tested my genes, we found out that I have the MTHFR gene, which means that my body can't break down B12 from food, so I had to get the methylated B12, which that's very common. It's a common mutation, which I didn't know about it, but I'm glad that I found out because that actually took away my headaches. So I haven't really had a problem with headaches since then. And I committed to practicing meditation every day. And that's important for a lot of reasons, but the main one for me was it helped me control my daytime thoughts because, when you're stressing yourself out, that doesn't help your nervous systems. And I was stressing myself out with a lot of negative thinking, so that helped a lot. Pacing helped me a lot because pacing actually stops that push rest cycle that we all do. You start feeling better, you push yourself, and then you crash and you have to rest. And pacing allows you to to stop before you push too far so that you don't have to rest, so you can kind of, go along more evenly. And it changes daily. Like, you can't do the same things every day. So I had to learn. That's a big learning curve, learning how to stop before you push too far. And I still don't do it perfectly all the time. Yin restorative yoga was huge for me. Restorative yoga is, an hour and a half of just letting your nervous system be calm and not work. It puts you into the parasympathetic mode and, lets your digestion start and all those good things that happen when you relax. And I can remember like walking up the steps, being in such pain walking up the steps, going to yoga class. And then on my way back out, like I wasn't in pain going down. It was a big difference. I tried the infrared sauna, which just made me crash for days. Like, I don't know what it was, the heat or the detoxing or whatever, but that I didn't like that. Okay, so now we get to the big setback. And so the big setback happened in October of 2017. I had another posterior nosebleed. And this time we had a specialist that knew my history. He was 45 minutes away. So we went ahead and made that trip. And I'm going to tell you because I got PTSD from this time. And I'm going to give you a little bit of detail, not to gross you out, but just so you understand that this is not just a regular nosebleed, and how much danger I was in. So I had a bucket, and of course, the blood is actually like flowing like a faucet from my nose, but it's also going down the back of my throat and clotting. So this whole drive, I am basically like suffocating in my own blood. And when I got there, they had to give me like a suction thing to try to keep my throat clear while I was waiting to go into surgery. So we did surgery. Within the next 2 weeks, we cannot get the bleeding to stop. I was back at the hospital 4 times in the next 2 weeks, and the last time it was so severe that I almost died. He did emergency surgery and had to actually crack open my sinuses to reach the artery this time, and but I lost so much blood. I had to have blood transfusion, and I was in ICU for a couple days, and this was serious. And the surgery caused a lot of damage in my face. Like I still don't have feeling in my palate and the side of my nose. But that wasn't, that's a small price to pay. So this was a very traumatic experience, and it shattered my sense of safety, and it dysregulated my nervous system even further. And this became my low point. When I got out of the hospital from ICU, I was in a wheelchair. It took me a few months to be able to have enough energy to walk on my own. It took me a while to recover from the blood loss. And on top of the symptoms that I was already experiencing, I also developed severe tachycardia to the point where I couldn't sleep anymore. As soon as I would try to fall asleep, like that moment when I was just starting to fall asleep, my heart would start racing, and I would have to like sit up and just couldn't sleep. I would wake up multiple times during the night with tachycardia, just my heart racing. I couldn't breathe. And it would take me, I would have to listen, I would sit there and listen to meditation CDs for hours trying to fall back asleep. And usually I couldn't, because as soon as I would drift off, it would happen again. So I spent months just like on the couch. I couldn't go in my bedroom because that's where the last nosebleed happened. So I was I couldn't, like I had associated it with that. So I was sleeping on the couch. And I also developed severe panic attacks. I tried therapy at this point, but I couldn't even do therapy because I would just get in there, and as soon as I would even think about what happened, like I would just have a panic attack. She'd have to give me a paper bag. I'd be pacing her office. So I couldn't even work with a therapist at this point. I couldn't digest food. If I would try to eat anything, my nervous system would just go nuts, and I would almost have like seizures. My whole body would just shake. And so like I was trying to drink smoothies and things like that, because it just felt like I was going to die from eating. It was a really, really dark time. Like I felt like I was in this body that was trying to kill me, and I just wanted out of it. I couldn't breathe properly. My chest was really heavy. I was breathing really shallow. I felt like I couldn't take a deep breath. So in January of 2018, I started feeling well enough to get back on the computer again, and I was watching the recovery videos again. And I noticed that Dan Neiffer, who does the CFS Unraveled and is the recovery videos that I was watching, he's actually now had a program called ANS Rewire that you could get, that he structured, a healing path for you. And so I was really excited about that. So I got that. And the program is a great guide. Like it's well structured. It's very comprehensive. It's simple, but not easy, because you have to do all the work. Unfortunately, as good as this was, I had to fix my PTSD and anxiety before I could actually really start the program. So that's what I did after my next setback. So in May 2008, I was trying out going to the store. I was trying out a short shopping trip. And I suddenly, I was standing in line, and I suddenly, my heart rate shot up, and I suddenly couldn't breathe, and I started feeling like I was going to black out, and I didn't know what to do. So I made it to the car. I drove myself home, which was I thought I was going to pass out. I really probably shouldn't have been driving. But I made it home, and I called the neighbor to come and sit with me, and it took an hour for my heart rate to come down. When I went to stand back up, it happened again. So that at that point, my cardiologist told me to go to the emergency room. And I ended up staying in the hospital for 5 days, went through some extremely invasive heart tests, and at the end was diagnosed with POTS, which is another symptom of nervous system dysfunction. So my nervous system was just, still going in the wrong direction. So when I came home from the hospital that time, that was my low point. I couldn't process anything. I couldn't process light or sound. I had to basically just lay in the dark. Trying to have a conversation would cause me to crash so badly that I would go into this weird, coma-like state where it felt like it was so scary, because I felt like if I was laying there in the dark, I didn't have the energy to even move my eyes. And it felt like if I fell asleep that I was just going to die, because I just stopped breathing, because I felt like I physically had to keep myself breathing. Just the most awful feeling in the world. I truly, at that point, thought there's no way I'm pulling out of this. This is how I die. Luckily, during this, I had watched some of the videos from the ANS Rewire program, so I could lay there in my darkness and my silence and practice some of the things that I had learned, as far as where I needed to be in my head and controlling my thoughts. And that actually probably saved my life. That brought me back to the point where I could get in the wheelchair and have my husband wheel me, to the bathtub and take a bath and then crash for the rest of the day. But every day that got a little bit easier. And it gave me enough hope to really put all my energy into healing and saying, okay, that's it. Like, it's up to me. I have to do this. And I did. So where I am right now is I feel like I'm about 50 or 60% recovered, depending on the day. But I know that I will get to 100%. Like, I know I will get there. I have no doubt in my mind that I will get there. I will get my life back. So that's it. I'll be sharing my journey until I get there. And you can subscribe to this channel if you want to follow me on my journey, and please feel free to comment. I know, like, it's a lonely place to be going through this, and we have to help each other because nobody else can understand. And unless you're going through this, you really cannot understand the devastation it does to your life. So let's be there for each other. And I'm also blogging at myadventuresinhealing.com. I'll put the link below if you want to follow me there. And I'll also put some links for the ANS Rewire and the other programs that I mentioned so you can check them out. I'll end this by saying, surrender to where you are in your journey right now, but don't give up. Surrender and giving up are two different things. Be okay with where you are right now. And know that you can't push your way to healing and you can't rush your way to healing. You have to find that balance. But you can do this.